Hello and welcome to In the Kitchen with Mary Mac. Today we're going to do a recipe that is an old recipe we've used in our family for a long time, and this is for a brownie mix. This mix can be used at home or parceled out for gifts or whatever you want to do. It's a really good mix, easy for kids to make. That's why I started doing this in the first place. When I first found it, we had a daughter who was about 10 at the time, and it was the perfect thing for her to just be able to whip up real quick, pretty much on her own, and bake and really give her a sense of accomplishment and also a nice treat to eat. So this makes a big batch of brownie mix. You can cut this recipe in half if you'd like to. We used to keep it in the refrigerator in a tub and just take out what we needed to make a batch. But you can separate it into individual bags and give it as gifts with the baking instructions, or just like I said, use it for yourself. And it's pretty adaptable. You can add a lot of different things to the mix to make it a little bit more special or tastier or whatever. It makes a nice cake-like brownie. It makes 1 8x8 pan of brownies per a serving of this mix. So it's just nice for a movie night snack or after school for the kids or whatever. So here we go. By the way, this recipe is from one of those, it's from a holiday baking book from 1989 or something. So it's been around for a while. So here we go. You'll need, first of all, a very large bowl to mix this up in, and you'll need a pastry cutter to cut shortening into this mix. So you'll need 4 cups of all-purpose flour, 6 cups of granulated sugar, 3 cups of baking cocoa, 4 teaspoons of baking powder, 3 teaspoons of kosher or sea salt, and 2 cups of shortening. So what you want to do is take the all-purpose flour, granulated sugar, cocoa, baking powder, and salt, put those into your large bowl and mix them with a whisk, a large size whisk, so that they're really, really well combined so you don't see any flour. It's all nicely mixed up. Next, measure 2 cups of shortening and put that into your bowl and kind of take, what I did, I took a butter knife and I cut it up into chunks so that I could, start breaking it up with the pastry cutter quicker, okay? So once you do that, you take your pastry cutter and cut that shortening into your dry ingredients really, really well. It should look like real fine, dark crumbs when you're done. And you want to, you might want to have a large spoon to kind of turn it over and then cut it a little more. And it takes about 10 or 15 minutes to cut that shortening in really well. Once you get that all cut in, this is the mix, and the mix is done, okay? So this mix, as far as the entire mix, yields 16 cups of mix, which is 8 batches of brownies, because you use 2 cups of the mix to make a batch of brownies. So at this point, you can either, like I said, put it in a large airtight container and store it in a cold, dry place or in your refrigerator, or you can divide it up, measuring 2 cups for each bag, or you could put it in a canning jar or something like that. Put 2 cups of mix in, which is a batch size of the mix, into a container, and a canning jar with a lid works really nice. Add a ribbon to it or cut a piece of fabric for a jar topper and add the baking instructions to that, and it makes a nice little gift. Or what I did was I put 2 cups in a plastic bag and then sealed it with a twist tie and tied a piece of ribbon on it. And then I'll put the baking instructions on that just to give out for a gift. So here are the baking instructions for the brownies. So if you want to make a batch of the brownies, you measure 2 cups of brownie mix, put them into a bowl. You need 2 extra large eggs, and you need 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So if you were going to give this as a mix, you would have your 2 cups of brownie mix in a container, a sealed container of some sort, and then you would to make brownies, combine this mix with 2 extra large eggs and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. You're going to mix that until it is just moistened. You don't want to overmix it. Spread into a greased 8x8 baking dish. Bake in a 350-degree oven for 20 to 25 minutes. Okay? That's what you would put on the recipe card. When you make the brownies, preheat your oven, put your 2 cups of mix into a bowl, 2 extra large eggs, crack them in there, and a teaspoon of vanilla. Stir that up with a fork. I recommend beating the eggs before you drop them into the bowl, but either way works, okay? So stir that mix up. Get your brownie pan and a good, I have a really nice 8x8 pan, worked perfectly. You don't want to use anything bigger than an 8x8 pan because it'll make the brownies too thin. So just a small size baking dish, even there are some that are smaller on the bottom, so it might be 8x8 on the top and 7x7 on the bottom because of the tapered size. Perfect. Okay. So grease your pan, spread your brownie mix in there because it's very, very thick, and spread it around, and then put it in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes. I would recommend closer to 20 minutes. You can add up to a half cup of stir-ins with this mix. So if you wanted to add a half cup of chopped walnuts or pecans or any kind of nuts, a half cup of chocolate chips of any flavor. I was thinking I have these Andes Candies baking bits, and I thought, I'm going to put those in a batch because that would be really good. But anything like that, up to half a cup, you can stir that in, and you want to stir that into the brownie mix while it's dry. Now, I wouldn't do that for gift giving. I don't think I would put any stir-ins in the brownie mix, but you could if you want to, whatever you want to do. But just adjust your instruction card to say something like that, like you can stir in up to a half a cup of add-ins, okay? So when you bake these, you want them to, you don't want to overbake these because these are like a cake-style brownie, and they're not super duper moist. They're reasonably moist, but they're not super duper moist. So you don't want to overbake them. So like I said, closer to 20 minutes is better. You want the center to be a little bit firm. So set your timer for 20 minutes, and keep an eye on them. And then you cut these into 2-inch squares. You get 16 brownies out of it, which is not a bad return for that little bit of work. And this is it's a good brownie mix. And like I said, it's a really easy one for kids to do. And as far as being cost effective, if your household enjoys brownies, this is not that expensive of a mix to make up. But with the price of brownie mixes right now, holy cow. I mean, this is a very cost-effective mix because you get 8 batches out of this. So that's a decent amount of brownie mix. Here's another thing you can do. If you want to make a 9x13 pan of these, you can use 4 cups, double the recipe, So 4 cups of dry mix, 4 eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and up to 1 cup of stir-ins. So if you wanted to do that, it comes out really good and you get a thicker brownie, So it works out well. This is a very nice mix, very convenient to have. What I liked about it was, like I said, I stored it in the refrigerator. I always had that in my fridge to, if you needed a quick thing for something, like if you forgot or if the kids needed something for their lunch or you wanted to run something up to a friend, you had something really quick you could throw together, bake it, and it's good and it's homemade, and that's really nice. Here's another twist on this recipe. You can make this gluten-free by using Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 flour in place of the all-purpose flour. So if you're watching gluten or you don't eat gluten or you're looking for something that you can make in your gluten-free diet, this is a good one. This is also good for people that can't have dairy because there's no dairy in this mix. And that's what's so nice about making your own baking mixes because you know what's in it. I wouldn't sub out the sugar because sugar is tricky to sub out. So I would not sub that out just basically because of the volume and the balance of the recipe. But definitely this is great for someone who can't have dairy. And it would be a really great gluten-free recipe. It works well with gluten-free flour also. So there you go. Really nice brownie mix just in time for the holidays. If you have a last-minute present you forgot, if you want to give something to your postal carrier, or the people that deliver your packages, this would be a nice thing to do. Or if you want to just give it to your friends or keep it all for yourself, which is what I'm probably going to do with most of it, is keep it for myself and make a lot of brownies. So there you go. There's our Christmas gift from Mary Mac Bakehouse to you, the gift of this really good recipe. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. And thanks so much for following us on social media and for supporting us in this little silly business that we have.
Be sure to check us out online on Facebook and Instagram at Mary Mac Bakehouse, on Twitter at Mobile Mary Mac and Mary Mac Podcast, and on our website, marymacpodcast.com.
Thanks a lot for listening if you did, and if you didn't, too bad for you.